Hello. Welcome to the Coach's Corner. This is number 11, I think. If I've been keeping count correctly, I believe I know how to count, but sometimes I fail. Yeah, this should be number 11. It's kind of wild to think already that we're in the double digits, but we are. We are there. Didn't see a whole lot of people. It's kind of quiet today, so I didn't see a whole lot of people join right at the beginning. I mean, yesterday was kind of neat. We had it was like 6 people, like right when the stream turned on. Like it was, people were waiting, ready to go. Here we go. I see at least somebody in there now. Hello, Mystic. What's up? It's good to see you. Good to see you. Today's going to be very fun, very interesting. I'm actually nervous. I'm nervous. Like I've never done this before. Not like, and I think if I am less nervous today than I was doing the first one of these streams. I think, yeah, for sure. But I'm still nervous. Never interviewed anybody, let alone someone who's like, a very senior level. He's a CEO of. So today's gonna be very fun. We're gonna be interviewing Jacob Van Ryn today, and Jacob Van Ryn is the CEO of NECC. That is the National Esports Collegiate Conference. Jacob will be on probably about 2:30 ish. So we're messaging on Discord. So whenever he's available, he will join. So it should be pretty fun today. All right. Let's see. What are we playing today? Oh yeah, I was like thinking, well, we'll probably get about 20 minutes or so to play this, play something. So I was trying to decide what to play. But yeah, I wasn't really sure what to play, but I got something. What I got is called Baltro. Baltro is a card game, so we can pass the time, play some cards, and chat, and go from there. Right? Like that's the idea. Baltro, it is. Yes, 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 yes. What's up, Nwatch? Good to see you. I don't know if you guys know Baltro. Baltro is a card game. It is a poker. I guess if the best way to say it's a poker Souls-like game, Dark Souls-like poker game. I guess if you want to say it that way. I think I have the sound good. I don't believe I have the music on. Okay, awesome. Okay. I'm trying to make sure this is coming through the audio okay, but I don't think it is. I don't think so. I didn't test this. I tested a lot of things in my nervousness, but I did not test this. How crazy is that? There we go. Oh, nope. I didn't do it. There we go. Okay, that's much better. I just need to fix this. See, look, I'm just fixing things as we go. Like that's the way it goes. Okay, I think we're good now. Yeah, we're good. Okay, sweet. You can kind of hear the weird clicking noises. Okay, great. Well, yeah, roguelike. Thank you for that. That's probably one of my favorite genres of games that exist is the roguelike games. But I always call them Souls-like games because that's really where they came from. However, there is a game that came out a very long time ago, and we're talking like this is pixel graphics on like a DOS machine. There was the original concept for what a Souls game, Dark Souls type game is. It was actually very old concept. It just hadn't been utilized and hadn't been effectively executed on like Dark Souls or Demon Souls. I guess that would be the very first one. But now like it was one of those kind of like Pandora box things. As soon as that idea opened up, people just jumped on it. And the idea, and you'll see it with this, is you go until you die or beat the game. And if you die, you lose everything. So we were playing Dungeonborn, I think last week, and it's like that. Like if you lose, you lose. You got to start over. But the differences with these roguelike games is that you build up your strength and your abilities and your items over time. Some of them are permanent. And so that you over time will build up your person to be able to defeat the boss or whatever. This one is a poker roguelike game. So we're playing poker. That's what we're playing. It's just there's RPG elements, role-playing game elements added to it to make it more complicated. So we're just going to jump right into it. And my goal is to basically make hands, poker hands, to be able to defeat this boss. And I'm actually going to move my camera over to the other side here, just because that way you can see. Yeah, that's fine. That'll work. Yeah, so that way you can see we have 300 points over here. That's how much points we have to accumulate to beat this dude. And so, yeah, I have to make these hands. So I see a pair of nines, which is not terrible, but I also see the opportunity for a straight. So I'm going to do my old thing here. I discard the last 3 cards. And I have 3 of a kind. I'm going to go ahead and play that. But you see, I only have so many hands. I can only discard so many cards before I lose, basically. So that hand was worth 180 points. So now we've got, 120 more to go. And here's 3 nines. Perfect. Let's send that on. There's 100. There we go. 351 points. Perfect. Brilliant. We got some money. Now we get to shop and buy some things. And this is the whole getting equipment and building up my deck, if you will. That's kind of the way this one works. So this one is a great card. Gives you a multiplier times 4, which is great. This one's even numbers. I don't think I want that. I'm going to do this instead. Some of this I'll explain. Some of it is I'll just go through it. I hate both of these. I absolutely hate both of these. Yes, Council, hello, hello. Yes, Baltro. We're just killing some time today. See, a couple of the people have joined. Just killing some time. Today's going to be exciting. Jacob Van Ryn will be with us in a little bit, and we'll interview him, talk to him. But I just wanted to pick something to kill the time. So Baltro it is. I've really enjoyed this game. I've spent a lot of time playing it. Just because. That's a good one. That's a good one. And then we go to the next round, and every time we beat one of these dudes, they get a little bit harder. One free. These are horrible cards. That's okay. Here's a full house. Got some kings, some sevens. We'll play that. That probably will be enough to do it in one go, honestly. Yeah, there you go. Let's go. Perfect hand. There's a banana. I really want this. It's a permanent upgrade for this round. Gives me an additional hand. Not a bunch of clapping. Not a bunch of clapping. Good question, and watch. So this interview it's a series. This is the first in a series of interviews, and or just conversations. They probably won't always be interviews. They could be a discussion, but it is about careers in esports. It's about what kinds of jobs and things could you be finding yourself involved in with esports. So I want to find people that are in the esports or the technology sector that is their career, meaning that that is their full-time job. That's what they do for their living. And I want to bring those kinds of people on here just mainly to give you as the esports people, some insight into what that world would look like. I'm really big right now. I've been saying this a ton about legitimizing esports and making it a real thing. And part of how you do that is you show that, yeah, this could provide a living for somebody. This could be someone's job. And so my goal is to find people that are advocates for esports, people that are making it in the space and doing amazing things, of course, but it's more about letting you guys in on the life of what that career could look like and showing you that it's possible and that, these are some avenues or things that you should consider. So I'm going to be asking questions about, like, how did he get there? What got him into esports? What does he see as the current state of esports? I'll ask some very big open-ended questions. What companies are you seeing move into the esports space that surprise you? So I have a list of questions, but Jacob and I have talked several times, and it's funny watching us talk. So you'll see it right away. But yeah, him and I we are very excited about esports. And when you have people that are very excited about something, it's just comical. It's just funny. So yeah, it'll be great. But Jacob's been a huge ally for us. And he continues to be a great asset to the esports community. And so I want to also showcase him a bit and let him, tell you about it, because you hear it from me all the time. You hear it from me all the time about how great things are, but I want you to hear it from other people as well, not just me. So that's what the purpose is. And also a great point, and watch, as we go, you guys put your questions in the chat. We may honestly use your questions to drive the conversation over the what. I mean, I wrote some questions down, but I mean, I'm pretty boring, so you guys can definitely ask questions in the chat too, and then we'll try to answer them as we go. So what I was trying to do, I know I'm not really explaining what I'm just clicking on things, but I was trying to discard some cards to get it straight. That didn't work out. So, but I do have a full house here, so we'll take that and we'll plug that in. There you go. Look at that. Hey, thank you, Destiny, my lovely wife. Yes, that is true. We did make the front page of the Ada News. That's pretty cool. Where can I can go to the Ada News. I actually got in trouble for this, just so everyone's clear. Like, I got in trouble. And I'll tell you why exactly. It's a great article. Sunny Baker is the person who wrote the article. Great fan. I love Sunny to death. I've known her for a very long time. And she wrote a great article. Very positive, very informative, really great. So let me actually, sorry, I'm talking about this. I'm not sharing my screen here. So where is this article? I guess I go to the paper, right? E-paper. The e-paper. I have to do this every time. I gotta log back in every time. I like the Ada News, but fix your website. Like, I shouldn't have to log in every single time I come here. That's okay. I think I'm in now. Okay, there we go. Now I'm in. Sorry, was not planning on this, but yeah, it's great. It's good stuff. It's really, really good stuff. So here's the Ada paper. I'm gonna try to zoom in. That is tiny. What? Fit maybe? That's so weird. Why is it so difficult to see that? I don't know. I don't know what's going on with this. Maybe I could do this. Ah, there we go. Okay, yes. So here, what happened was Sunny, I've known Sunny for a long time, and she did an article on our esports program about a year ago, and it was a really good article. It more talked about like what is esports, like what is the plan, what's the idea. This was a follow-up, and I didn't know when Sunny and I first sat down, like I didn't know this was to make an article like this, but it quickly turned into that. She was just catching up with me on something, and something unrelated to this. And then because of the things we talked about, it turned into an article, and it's a really good overview of like what's basically happened over the past year, and really, really good stuff about it. So, yeah, I encourage you to go check this out. It's a good overview of the program. It talks a lot about what we've accomplished over the past year, and what we intend to continue, what's coming, what the upcoming stuff is. I told Sunny this when she did this. I don't like putting myself out there that much. I don't like putting my name out there. It's just, I'm an introvert, so it's just not what I like to do. But I'm being advised that I need to let this be and let it happen. So, okay, I will. But yeah, I highly encourage it. I'll post the article in the chat. You guys are welcome to check that out. Share it around. I put it on Facebook as well, so feel free to share that around. Not sure why this is not showing up right away, but whatever. We'll find it. There we go. Put this in the chat. Yeah, check it out. It's good stuff. It's interesting. I've already had one person call me, a prospective student call me today. I was in between something. I was sitting at my desk trying to do something else, and a person called us. And they just started asking me all of the like, hey, I heard about your esport program. I heard about this going on. Like, tell me more about this. Like, what is this? Tell me about this. What about this? And then so like through this conversation, I just was like, hey, like how did you find me? Like where like just because I'm curious, like I want to know how people are getting to visit with me. And he said, oh, I saw in the Ada paper this morning, and it really like it was eye opening. He's like, I didn't know it was even possible to go to school and play esports, but let alone come in, be part of a community, get a scholarship, all of the things that we're doing. He was just like, I couldn't even believe. He's like, all of this is happening, and I'm like, yeah, we're real. Like it's happening. Trust me, it's a lot of work and it's very difficult, but it is happening. But yeah, already because of this, I've had one student, potential student, reach out. So it's really good. It's really really good. Anywho's, where were we back? That spiraled out, man. And Watch asked a great question on what questions we're going to ask. And then we talked about the news articles. So, yeah, I have questions prepared to ask Jacob, but you guys ask them too. Like, feel free to put them in chat. I have Discord pulled up because I asked in our general chat if anybody had any questions. So, I have some questions, but that doesn't mean that you guys feel free to ask them, fire away. Fire away with whatever you guys want to ask. Jacob's great. He's a good resource. So, that's why I want to have him here. Crazy Kid read the morning paper. Yeah. It's kind of interesting too, because you don't hear a lot of people reading the paper nowadays. It's people get most of their content on social media. So it's interesting because now I see social media and news sites like the Ada News putting it out on social media, and that's where the traffic, that's where their articles are circulating now. You're seeing a lot less of the paper productions of the news and more of the online social type things. Okay, what are we doing? Baltro. I don't like any of these. I get a free reroll. I'm going to sell this. I'm going to swap this out. Nope, I want the spade one. Use my free reroll. That's a 10-4 radio. Play a 10 or a 4. It gives you extra stuff. A 1 in 2 chance to create a tarot card when a booster pack is open. This is horrible. Is anybody in chat played Baltro? Because this is a horrible run. I can re-roll the boss blind. I actually don't. This is probably the least damaging blind. So every boss has like a debuff, I guess, a blind, some type of thing that they do to make it harder. And this one's probably the easiest of them. The must play 5 cards. In my opinion, I think it's the easiest. There's one like you can only play one hand. Yeah, they're tough. So I'm going to leave that alone. Let's see. Nothing good. So we're just going to discard some things here. Try to get something. Ace, king, queen, 10. No jack. Although I've got 3 10s. And I could do this. This might do it. I don't know. It'll be close. Hey, there we go. Dang, that was actually a lot. That's a lot. I say that this has been a bad run, and I knock out a 4,000 chip hit in one swing. This is good, actually. Buy and use. Gives me the value of all of my jokers, which netted me 7 gold. I don't want that. Choose one of up to 3 playing cards. Yep, I'll take that. I've won a few. I've won a lot of these. These are all bad. That's okay. We're good. We'll move on. Next round. So now I have a choice. I can get a free mega standard pack or fight him to get to the boss and maybe get more. I don't know. We'll see. So why am I doing this? I play the game to build straights. It's just the tactic I use. It seems to work for me sometimes. I try to focus on high cards though, for sure. I definitely will focus more on the high cards than I will on the. Although I've played this before, and I've actually had a deck set up that focused on playing non-face cards. So that is possible. Kind of like playing a rogue versus a paladin. Like they just play differently. Again, not amazing. Earn 5 gold for every discarded 4? A mail-in rebate. A mail-in rebate. I don't know about that. That's weird. These planets level up your how much each of the hands. So that was a straight. So now my straight earns me more when I do it. Okay, here's the boss. Here is the boss. Let me just message Jacob. There we go. What do we got? Kings, queens, 10, 9, 8. No jack. Ugh. I'm going to keep the 10. Got another 10. We'll just play this hand to get rid of it. Oh, look at that. I don't know why that worked, but okay. We'll take it. We'll take it. So the multipliers that the jokers give is like paramount. And you have to build your deck around the jokers that you get as you play. And essentially try to pick a strategy and focus on that with the jokers particularly. So, for example, I have spades. This says as the lowest ranked cards, so I never want like a 2 or 3 at the end of my stack. I don't need this, so I can replace this whenever I want to. Oh, is Jacob's here whenever? Let me see. Let's see if he's on. I guess we could use Discord. Yeah, we can use Discord. Why not? I'm going to leave that. I had set it up for Teams. Okay, let me get him on. And then, yeah, pause, guys. This will be a little brief. It'll be a little odd for a second. So just bear with me. Bear with me for just a second. I know I won't be able to share my camera, I don't think. Hello, hello.
Hello, sir. How are you?
I am great. So I have a couple problems. I have many problems, Jacob, as usual. One of them is having you be able to see my face is going to be a challenge.
No
So
worries. No worries.
we'll deal with it. I also got to set up the stream a little bit better because I had originally intended us to use Teams, but
Yep.
that's okay. Let me.
I say we start the bar low, my friend.
That's okay. Listen. So I shared with Jacob. We're live now, Jacob, with everybody.
Awesome.
Everybody should be able to hear you just fine. They can't see
Wonderful.
you just yet. I'm like still
That's a good
actively
thing.
figuring it out. But let's see where to go. Discord. Okay. Now everyone should see your wonderful face. Hello, hello. This
Excited
is
for them. Hello.
great. All right. Well, we're here. So, Jacob, thank you so much for joining us. This is the first in my hopes of a series that we do. At a university, my role is to help educate and teach. And one of the ways that I can do that is by bringing wonderful people like you to just talk to the students. And my goal is to find people that are in the career of esports and they are senior level like yourself. And that way you can speak to what you go through. How did you get there? You know, what are some things you're seeing from esports? So it's a really big conversation. But I think obviously first introduce yourself, Jay. Like tell everybody who you are, what do you do, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah, it's wonderful to be here. Thank you, Cody, and it's wonderful to be joined by everybody. I'm Jacob. I'm the commissioner CEO of the NECC. This is kind of for me 30-second background, very surreal. I started my career and spent the better part of my career being an older person that I am in traditional college athletics. Primarily spent Division II, Division III conference office work. Last job was as a conference commissioner of a Division III conference, and helped start the NECC. We're going upon our 5th year in 24-25, and just really excited to be a part of this community. Again, very surreal for me. I'm a true outsider to the space, but I've made it my life because it's such a wonderful, inclusive space, and I'm really proud to be a part of.
And I think this is something I remember when we first met. you had said that, like, so Jacob comes from the traditional athletic side and then came over to esports. And so maybe just share on that, Jake. Like, what are the differences that you see? And you kind of mentioned like the community part about it, but
Yeah.
maybe talk on that a little bit more about the difference you see between the two.
Yeah, I think listen, I didn't live in the big, high level Division 1 traditional athletic space at all. Never, broadcasted somewhat, but never made my career in that. I worked exclusively in Division 2 and Division 3 athletics. What I see it's really unique about esports and why I'm really proud to be a part of it. And when I talk about the community, is the willingness for people to work with one another to help support one another and really all for the betterment of the community, all for the student athletes, all for the players themselves, and that's really pretty special to be a part of. No indictment of traditional collegiate athletics at all, but it's much more territorial, it's much more competitive. So getting into a space where people were willing to take a phone call and say, hey, I did that and it worked great, or hey, have you checked that out, going back to like Oklahoma versus Texas, like those teams aren't, they're not crossing paths. They're not saying what worked for you or what worked at East Central, what worked here, or what worked there. In esports, they are. And that's really special to be a part of. Now, who knows, 5, 10, 20 years from now, I don't know if that'll be the same. But right now, that's definitely the case. And we're a byproduct of that. People were willing to just spend 15, 20 minutes, half an hour with us and listen to us and say, this is what we're trying to do. And it's really humbling and really special to be a small part of that. I think it's a real thing, and it's really been cool for me to experience sort of both sides of it. But what's happening right now in collegiate in the space is really very special.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with that. Well, and also when I reached out to you, I just said, "Hey, I have this crazy idea. Like, would you
Yeah,
be willing to do this, Jacob? Would you be willing to
yeah,
come on this and talk to us?" And immediately Jacob was like, "Yeah, I'll be there. Like, I'd be honored to be there." And so that's kind of what Jacob's talking about. He's like, there is this openness right now, and that probably will change. I'd imagine. I agree with that.
sure.
But for now, I reach out to people from other universities, and they're open and willing. But then they're also reaching out to me and saying, "Hey, what did you do?" So it's a very back and forth collective effort right now, which, in my mind, does make it special, but
Yeah.
also is helping elevate esports so rapidly and making it a legitimate thing. And of course, I'm big about that. I want to make it legit. I want us to be legitimate. So very cool. I will add, just guys in chat, please fire away your questions. Like, they were asking me about
Yeah.
like what we were going to ask, and I said, just, if you have questions, put them in chat. We'll reach them. I have some questions I prepared, just to kind of keep it going. But we talked about your traditional athletic side, and I'm going to say this because I like you, Jacob, but how on earth did you get to be running the largest collegiate conference in the nation? Like, how
I
did that
shouldn't
even
be. Yeah.
happen?
Yeah. So listen, backstory on how we started. And it's really, Cody, I appreciate the kind words. It's awesome. And man, I echo the sentiment that you shared there. Like these conversations, love meeting people like yourself. And that's why, like, I don't take these things for granted, these opportunities, because I really shouldn't, like you and I probably should have never crossed paths. So, I don't take those things lightly. Some of my best friends in the world are people that in my, previous life I would have never met. So
Yeah.
how did we start? Um, I was a Division 3 conference commissioner. A handful of the member schools of the conference I worked for had esports programs to varying degrees, and they said we want to bring esports to the conference. They were the visionaries. I said, sure, love it, I'm in. Know nothing about it, so I'm going to need help. The one thing I shared that we talked about really early on with the presidents of the member institutions was we were going to do it if we were going to do it, if we were going to sponsor esports, we were going to do it at a level that was similar to any other quote unquote traditional sport that we offered: women's soccer, softball, baseball, soccer, etc. We were going to sponsor esports in the same way. We weren't going to have a Valorant tournament over the weekend and say we sponsored esports. We were going to have full semester of competition. We were going to have schedules. We are going to have championships. They were going to get the same awards that the basketballs, the baseballs, the world, they receive those type of things.
Same
Brought
experience.
on, yeah, exactly, top to bottom, and structure and everything. So yeah, exactly right. So brought on, met, had a school, New England College, had a young man that was interested in the space and had been a player in a variety of leagues and was really my foray, my guide into this space. And he had played in every collegiate league. He'd been a professional player. and said, "This is what is done, and this is what I think we can do a little bit better." And we tried to really take some of the elements of traditional and merge them, bring them, I guess, to the collegiate esports space. So in terms of management, we've treated this like traditional, basically with everything that we've done. Structure is very similar: full semester of competition, championships, trophies, et cetera, all that stuff that you think about when you think about traditional college athletics in that way. And that's, for us, I guess the thing that our biggest, I guess, thing that was led to our growth primarily probably was our divisional model, and that came from my background in Division 3 and Division 2 athletics.
Hmm.
The thing that I said was, like my school. Speaking of schools I worked for in Division 3, they would love to play Oklahoma or Texas or UCLA or
Right,
Michigan
right.
or Florida, but they would get their doors blown off, right? So that was what was happening in collegiate esports. It was pick two names of a hat and say, go have a game and go have a good time. And the likelihood of that being a really competitive match was very small. So we created a divisional model, very small at first. Our first semester of competition, we had like 30 plus colleges. We basically had two divisions in each of the titles we sponsored, still massive gaps within, but there was something there. And people started to rally around that. And now we've grown. We've grown, not just, we offer divisional competition, not just by what we call compete level, but also by geographic location, which has been a really cool part of it because it's led to some of those traditional sort of local rivalries with schools that you're
Right.
familiar with, and you're not playing a college or university that's 3,000 miles away or in a 6 hour time difference or something like that.
Yeah, yeah. The Great American Conference is like that. That's right in that same lens
Exactly.
of what you're talking about. You
Exactly.
you hinted on something in there that I really want to focus on just for a second, and because I don't. Here's what I don't want. You need to give yourself some credit, okay? Like a little bit, Jacob. Like seriously.
Yeah.
So one of the things I've been talking a lot about with the students, and I'm going to say about 1,000 times this year, is about transferable skills. You went from traditional athletics as a commissioner into esports as a commissioner. And there was probably a lot that you were like, okay, this makes sense. I already did this before. This was something I could transfer. Can you talk about that? Like about transferring between those two things and what the skills, maybe a couple of the skills that you recognize that you knew this from commissioning and traditional and now it was effective here. Maybe talk
Yeah.
about a couple of those.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a really good question, and it's really central to my experience, quite frankly. And I'm glad you brought it up because I think what's so special about esports, especially in higher education as it pertains, is the opportunity to get your hands in and get experience in a variety of different aspects. Obviously, we talk about that. We've all seen that chart of esports. It's got your fingers and everything, whether it be management or broadcast or production or tournament ops or whatever. So for me, I think my greatest strength in many ways was sort of I guess the management structure. I say that sort of like
Hmm.
not great because I don't think I'm great at it, quite frankly. But what I knew what was that we could do something, we could organize it at such a way, and ultimately for us, it was making sure that we were treating this community of collegiate um, with the level of respect that they warranted and they deserved. And I'll tell you very 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 transparently about me. I think my greatest asset, and this is a weird thing to say, my greatest asset is that I know what I don't know, and that's really hard
That's a good one.
to accept. It's really hard to accept. And
Yeah.
listen, if I was, I'm 47 years old. If I was 22, if I was 27, I couldn't have done this. But I knew that every intern, every staff member that was going to work with us in any way, shape, or form, they were going to know more about esports than I was, and I was going to learn from them. But you know, I can sit here to this day, 4 plus, 5 plus years into this thing now, and I know so very little compared to everybody that has had this be a part of their life since basically they were born. And I'm very jealous of that in many ways. But I know that I don't know, and I know I can ask and say, "Hey, I don't know. Tell me about that." I had a meeting earlier today with, an organization that does some fighting games, and I was like, "I know nothing about this. Tell me about this. Like, tell me what you offer. Tell me what your sponsor,
Yeah.
stuff like that." Like, and I can very very easily say that because I think that ability to say, "I don't know. I need help," is
Mhm.
really valuable. So in terms of transferable skills, I think we all have a human nature to be like, I'm going to puff myself out. I'm going to pump myself up. I,
Yeah.
I think it's pretty special to say, hey, I don't know, and I need help, and that's real. And obviously, my background in traditional athletics, management, schedule, structure, all that stuff has certainly factored in. Has certainly been helpful in some degree along the way. But I think the ability to say, hey, we're trying this thing. Would you be willing to help? Would you be willing to have a conversation? Would you be willing to support? That's really meaningful. And I think I would share with, especially with younger people that are just starting or they're thinking about what's next or they're a freshman in college, like get your hands in everything. Check
Yeah.
everything out that you can. You're never going to have the opportunity. Some point there's going to be bills to pay. At some point there's going to be a mortgage. There's going to be a family. There's going to be an
Yeah.
apartment rent that's due and a cell phone
Kids.
bill and all that
Don't
stuff. And
forget the
for many
kids.
people, exactly, exactly. And for many people there is already, but you're going to have this window of time to say, hey, what do I like? What can I do? And you're not relying upon, hey, I've got to make money doing it per se.
Yeah.
So I think that's really valuable. And I think that's a great learning tool. And I think that's what's really pretty special about esports in that, Cody, we talk about, you can see it through the competitive lens, right? I want to be a great player. You can see it through the
Yeah.
educational lens. Hey, I want to learn more about the space. You can see it in the management lens and the tournament operations. You can see it in the broadcasting lens and the production and all that stuff. There's so many different areas and opportunities to get again, get your hands involved and get your feet in it and check out what you like. And if you don't like it, that's okay. Check something
Yeah.
else out and do that now where you're not relying on, oh God, I got to do this thing for the next however many months, years, whatever, because I've got to make a salary because I've got to provide for myself and others.
Yep. No, that's I often say that the safest place to fail is a university,
Yep,
and you should try
exactly
as
right.
many different things as you possibly can, especially in like what you're talking about, trying new roles, trying totally new avenues within the same thing, but it's a new type of work for you potentially, and try it out. And that is one of the values that I offer here is we have student workers who we pay to do a lot of the commentating, to manage the labs, to help admin, help me with admin stuff. And those are jobs that these students would go into and do as their full-time job. And Jake, I'm sure you could talk about how many staff does NECC currently have? How many employees do you support?
Yeah, I mean, we have 7 full time at this point. We have literally hundreds that'll do hourly, different opportunities, different roles with us. Cody, to that point, I love the paid opportunity. For us, we majority of our positions are paid. We do have some unpaid interns, and most of those are for course credit. So there is some sort of value there in that experience, hopefully. But
Take note of that,
I love
students.
what you.
Take note of
Yeah,
that. We could do this. We
yeah,
can make that happen.
yeah, I love what your program offers in that way. I think that's meaningful. Selfishly for us, listen, if you've got some sort of equity built in, hey, I'm going to get paid to do this. At the end of the day, you're going to do it better.
Right.
Let's be honest. If I'm going to do something that's going to pay me, 10, 15, $20 an hour, I'm probably going to do it better than if I just say, I want to do that. That's just human nature. There's some
Yeah.
sort of, tangible outcome that you're going to get as a result of that. So no, nobody, and listen, I'm among everybody else in our staff. Nobody on our staff is getting rich. Nobody on our staff is wealthy. We have a lot of staff members that are working other jobs because of where we are in the space right now, because of our structure and our pecking order, quite frankly, and that's okay. But it's been really humbling and really special to work with a lot of people who have said, "Hey, I just want to help," and that's been really really cool. And to your point, Cody, about like test it out and try it, and to your students and to your community, love to talk about internships, opportunities. I mean, the Great American with what we're doing with the conference, we love to work with specific conferences in that way, and we like to work and provide internship opportunities for the students within the conference to help us run and manage the conference. Those are the opportunities where seen a great deal of success in providing those professional development opportunities and working with, and ultimately every member of our staff, with the exception of the two of us that sort of started way back when, have all worked in that sort of capacity, and they've gone on to full time roles. We're like, hey, we got to find a role we got to find a way to pay this person
Yeah.
as much as we can. We can't afford to lose them.
Yeah. That's, I think a lot of people, so people volunteer. There's a decline right now in volunteering and
Yep.
interning in general, and I think it's because of the what do you get out of interning?
Sure.
It is you're getting something out of it, but you're also giving something at the same time. And interning is a great example of that. I talk a lot about, yeah, we have student work jobs here, but there are other opportunities for you to plug in. And who do you think I get my student workers from? I'm going to get them from people who are active in my community, who are active with the esports program. Jacob's just telling you the business world works the same way. And so you have to do
Oh,
those same types of things.
and I will tell you right now, I think the greatest probably advice I can share with a younger cohort, a younger community right now, just reach out and introduce yourself, and just say, hey, this is me, and this is what I'm passionate about. And if you've got the opportunity to intern, whatever, whether it's paid, unpaid, get experience, get those reps under your belt. Just again, check out what you like, what you don't like. But I can't. I can only share from personal experience, really, in traditional athletics, probably more so than esports, is how many people graduate and then they're looking for a job, even on their own campus or something like that, and they're applying for an opportunity, and people are like, "This person graduated from here. I never met them. I don't even
Mhm.
know who they are. They might be a great person, but I never knew them." So if you have the opportunity, stop in, introduce yourself, say, "Hey, Cody, how can I help out? And what can I do?" And because then down the line, when Cody or whomever, other director, other school, they're going to say, "Hey, I remember working with that person. That's a great person, and I want to work with them. I want to hire them. I want to support their professional growth and development." And that's how this thing works. I mean, like I said, all of our staff, they've been interns hourly, basically, um, started that way, and they were became basically extremely important parts of who we were and who we are in our growth and development. And like I said, we had to find a way to hire them. But if you don't know, and then you're just a blank piece of paper and a resume or whatever, that's not going to resonate the way that introduction, that handshake, that formal introduction is going to have that same weight.
I'll give a joke before I say something else, but Jacob and I have this thing where we both know when the other person needs to take a drink, and that's when we switch. I hope somebody else has recognized that other than me, but it's just really funny. No, I said something a couple weeks ago that upset somebody, and because they told me it upset them, and I said, look, it's not what you know, it's who you
Yep,
know. And if someone does not
absolutely.
know you, they're not going to pick you. You have to, but I tell you that to equip you to know and be able to do better and to know that and tactfully use that to your advantage in the workforce. So yeah, that's part of it is knowing who you have. I have one question in chat and then we'll move on to my next one. But
Awesome.
the question in chat is, so we were talking earlier about the communication between the schools and how that's been a really good thing, and there's been a lot of sharing and collaboration in the space. They asked, do you think that's going to make games better over
Hmm.
time, or do you think that that will actually make the games more stale? Like, will it actually make the competition less because we're all sharing and not being, I guess, what's the word, competitive,
Oh,
super competitive?
wow. That's a really interesting question. It's one that I've not come across, and that's really good. I think that right now, um, where collegiate is relative in its infancy, I think right now it's really valuable. Down the line, I would say that shifts and that dynamic might change. And what I mean by that is that right now the ability to communicate through this virtual world is really valuable, and the sharing of ideas, the sharing of concepts, and even gameplay. Right at the end of the day, the reason people want to compete and they want to do this is because it's fun to play a game with your friends. This is your community. This is who you are. This is what you do for fun and a good time. Now, there's different levels, there's different tiers, obviously, all that stuff. But I think ultimately, right now, it's really healthy. Down the line, I would say, as these uh, programs, as universities um, find their niche, that might change a little bit. And I'll tell you what's going to change is, and we've seen the shift already, the recruiting aspect of it. I think originally, even when we started, just 4+ years ago, officially, it was enough to say you had esports at a college or university. Hey, we've got an esports program. Awesome. That opened eyes, right? That was a separator, and that school had a leg up if you were interested in that. Now every school has esports to some degree, whether it's a
Right.
club, whether it's a varsity, whether it's fully funded, whether it's scholarship level, whether it's very recreation, and that's okay. But right now all of a sudden, those high school age students are now saying, "All right, I play Rocket League. What does your university have?
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to play Rocket League in college. How are you going to help me get better? What is that experience going to look like for me?"
Right.
Much like a traditional student athlete, right? It's not like you have basketball, great, right? Now you have Rocket League. What else? Do you have a devoted coach? Do you have a facility? Do you have an educational framework or a curriculum or a major or a minor that your institution offers to help support my growth and development in this path that I'm very passionate about? So that's been a very interesting shift in a very short window of time. And I think it's been good overall. At the same time, it's really challenged a lot of universities because a lot of universities started an esports program and said, "We're going to offer esports." And they said, "What does that mean?" They said, "I don't know. We have esports. We got to have esports," because
Right.
that
Right.
was what was happening. You saw a slide, you saw the numbers and the number of kids that were participating and
Yeah.
playing every night. So they had to do it, right? And it's not enough anymore. There's got to be. It's like it's like college football. What separates you? What's your differentiator? And that's when I talk with college presidents or vice presidents or people who are thinking about starting programs, I say, don't just say you have esports. You know, you've got to hang your hat on something, whether it's the competition, education, enrollment, whatever it may be, professional development, internship opportunities. Really identify that thing that you want your program to be known about, so that you can share that with those potential students, athletes, with that community. So to answer that question, I think right now it's a good thing. I think as we go forward, it might become a little bit more separated in the future.
Yeah. Well, and I think too, to add to that, the recruiting is that's a really good point about collegiate recruiting, um, and it's the resources. As we see
Yeah.
more resources come into esports, we will start to see more territorial behavior. And I hate to say money, it's all going to be about money. That's ultimately what will happen. OU is a great example. I use them as an example because they are a very big university that uses their brand and their logo and their university as a selling point. They say, no, we are OU. Like that's that they hang their hat on, they are OU. Not every university can do that. And so you have to find something that's of value that your university does differently than everybody else. And I agree with what Jacob, there's a lot of universities that don't. They have an esports program and that's it. Like who's running it?
And
What do
I'm
they
gonna
have?
and right, and I'm gonna share this. I'm assuming your community knows this, but one of the things that we talked about originally that I was so impressed with was your idea to work with the local Oklahoma high school. You know, the local programs and create that framework, create that pipeline, create those opportunities, and say, hey, listen, we're East Central. We have this opportunity, this great program here. This is what we bring to the table, and it opens eyes. And that's the stuff that really, as we think about ourselves as the NECC and as an organization, it's those membership service organizations that you've already established in with A plus effort in terms of that relationship. That's the next foray into this thing, right? It's not just enough, Cody, to that point to say we have Rocket League. Okay, great. There's 500 other colleges, universities within,
Yeah.
a 3 mile radius that have
Yeah.
Rocket League. What's the other thing?
Right.
And that's the reality of it. So that's why I applaud what you've done in terms of getting your footprint in that local area and saying, hey, listen, I know the majority of our students here on campus come from the state of Oklahoma. It's that's not unique to Oklahoma. Most students attend a college university within about a 100 mile radius of
Right.
where they grew up. So how do you flush out that pipeline? How do you make sure that people know who you are right in your backyard? Because those are the ones that are going to come to your place to compete and obviously learn and hopefully graduate.
Right. And those are the ones that I will know, right? Just going back to what we were just talking about. Those are the students that I have. And I
Exactly.
call somebody out in chat that we have somebody from high school in chat hanging out with us, like
That's
that's
awesome.
part of it is that I want them to be included, them to be part of this and start to experience our community and, what we have to offer as a high school student as well. And I agree. Yeah, it is building that pipeline because ultimately, where are these students coming from? I'm a D2
Of
regional university. Most of the students that come to East
course.
Central University are coming here because they either live nearby or it's affordable for them. And I have to also be very conscious of that and understand where they're coming from, which is unique. And it is very difficult at times to get people to come. So yeah.
And I think, just to continue on, I think what's been really unique about talking with you and so many directors is the challenges are very unique on each different campus,
Hmm.
and the structure and what your goals are very different. Primarily when you think about college athletics as a whole, it's to win, it's to be successful. For esports, you could take on so many different paths. Like you bring up Oklahoma's program, they don't really care about wins and losses. I
Right.
mean, they,
At
they
all.
use it through an educational framework, and
Hmm.
that's, I mean, for a program like OU that you talk about. I mean, you think of them, you think about a football team, you think about great success in
Right.
athletics across the board, and they don't care about that. They've done it as an educational framework, and that's kind of unique. And ultimately, I think what's really that's really special about collegiate and about the space is that we don't all have to have the same goals. Northwood and Michigan can say we want to win national championship, we want to be the best we can be, and good on them. That's going to be their goal. That's going to be their aspiration. Program like yours, a program like OU and whatnot, can say, hey, we're going to have a great experience. We're going to provide a great experience for our community, and you're going to learn and you're going to get better and you're going to get you're going to get involved in a lot of different facets in addition to playing on the Valorant team, playing on the Rocket League team,
Right.
and so on and so forth.
Yeah, I agree. I always say, to the students, and I'll say this a billion times, esports is secondary at the collegiate level. It's important to remember esports is secondary to your education. This is an extra
Yeah,
thing that helps you grow and develop and learn new skills and be in a community, but it's secondary to the most important thing, which is you getting here to get your degree, because that's why you're here. If you're coming to play
absolutely,
esports,
absolutely.
then that's not the right reason to be here. It's I want you to come here to learn and be part of the community and plug in and try new things and grow. That's why I want you here.
And ultimately you use esports as that tool that
Right.
is a part and makes their experience at your university that much better. That's
Right.
the goal. I mean, at the end
Exactly.
of the day, this is this is very much like traditional college athletics, and then it's a retention enrollment tool, and it leads to a better experience during your time on that campus.
Yeah, totally. And that's yeah. So esports for us is recruiting. It's also retention. It's not just recruiting, and
Sure.
so that's a big part of it as well. Changing topics just a little bit.
Hit me.
Do you
Hit me.
play? What are you playing right now? Are you playing any
I
games right
don't.
now, like at
I
all?
don't. No. I don't. I don't. The last game I played, you're gonna laugh. Last game I played consistently was NHL '94. How's that? That's how old I am.
NHL hockey?
That's how old I am. Yes, yes. I played that in my college freshman sophomore dorm hours upon it. I don't play. I don't listen. You see, like you laugh like you know this stuff. I don't like. I understand Rocket League on my screen because it's part of
Yeah,
soccer. I can wrap my head around that.
yeah,
If we didn't have on our when I watch our stream matches, when I watch when we're live, we have games going on, whatnot. During the week and during the season. If there was not a score bug, I would have no clue who was ahead, what was happening, any of
right.
that stuff. God's honest truth. That's the truth. But I
Nice.
love it, and it's really really cool. But I don't play. No, people ask me that like, "Can we play? You want to play?" I'm like, "No, I'm going to embarrass myself worse than I
Yeah.
already do."
No, it's great. No, and I say the same. I mean, my daughter does gymnastics. I don't know anything but I support her and like I want her to do well, so I have to learn a bit about it.
Yes,
I was my
yes.
follow up to that was if you don't play, what do you like to watch? Like what's the game that you like to watch when you're either catching
Yeah.
up or streaming?
I mean, Rocket League is sort of my default because I can sort of wrap my head around the process, and it's got very many aspects of traditional athletics with the passing and the goals and the that type of stuff. I think that I've really we have a really good Valorant community. We were sort of early adopters in that title has just continued to grow in popularity. I now enjoy that. I sort of again I couldn't tell you rules. I couldn't tell you what's happening on a map by map basis, but I've really grown to enjoy watching that and sort of the strategy involved. League of Legends is very like I sort of wrap my head around that and I can sort of understand from that macro level, like, all right, this is a battle and this is what's happening and
Right,
all
right.
this stuff is going
Somebody's
on. But
dying over
yeah,
there. Yeah.
that's it. Yeah, and that's not good. And I see the numbers and stuff like that. But ultimately, what I really enjoy, and I don't get to do it enough, quite frankly, is the opportunity to watch our teams, our players, our schools certainly compete in person and just watch that camaraderie. I think that's really, really cool. So watching it on stream is great, but when I get the opportunity to attend something in person, that's when I really get the chance to sort of watch the competitors, watch the players compete in the high five and the fist pump and the
Yeah.
look of dejection or whatnot. That's the stuff that really resonates with me from sort of that sort of competitive side of background. And that's what's really special to, when I watch things in terms of that level.
Yeah. I today I hosted the cross country team. So I just told the athletic teams like
That's awesome.
if y'all need a team building activity, come up, just bring your students. Like I'll hang out with them for an hour and play. And I put them on a game and it was 6v6 and the cross country guys were like really getting into it, super aggressive. Like they of course it's and I try to explain to them like this is exactly what we go through with esports. But it was to your point, it was more for me after we were done, after everyone was leaving and it was the bickering back and forth. I got 12 kills. You didn't capture any flags. You didn't do this. Blah. It was the piece that I was
Yep.
like, that's it right there. That's the camaraderie that gaming and esports can do. And it was great just hearing them bicker back and forth about it. It just felt like home, like what we do.
It's so funny because when I started and people were talking about in-person events, and I was like, why? Like, what do you mean in-person events? Like, you're going to be on a computer, you're going to be on you're going to be using keystrokes and whatnot.
Yeah.
But then I got to attend and I got to see firsthand, and I continue to get to experience those things, and it's just different. And for us, certainly one of our goals is bringing more of those to our community. I think that as we go forward, there's more and more schools that are willing to host those opportunities, and certainly with our regional component becoming more so, it's become doable. In terms of, hey, we've got the Great American Conference is sort of a great example of that, because you've
Yeah.
got a physical conference where you can come together. They come together for a basketball championship. They come
Yeah.
together for a football. It's that type of thing. And we can do that in esports, and I think that's really special, and that's really the future of making people understand. Much like myself, I didn't understand that 5 years ago about coming together and competing in person, and those moments that you talk about of that high five, that fist pump, that dap, whatever it may be. That's the stuff that is really, really cool. In addition to obviously the communications and everything going on, the same stuff that's central to teamwork at any sport at any level.
Right. Yeah, I agree with that totally. And I think that's people ask me a lot of times like, well, how did this happen so quickly? How'd you get how'd you get all this stuff so fast? The first thing I did was the person who I wanted to make sure they understood what you just said was the president of the university.
Absolutely.
I hosted an event. I had 50 students in an auditorium playing Super Smash Brothers. And he sat there
Absolutely.
and he saw it. And then after the event, he said, okay, I get it now. Because I saw the kids,
That's
I saw
awesome.
the students having fun. I saw them, getting engaged. I saw them competing. I understand now. But yeah, you have to kind of see that in person to get that. And which is difficult to do if we're not having in-person competitions. And so
And
I'm
I think
glad
to
to hear
that
that.
point, yeah, and I think to that point, I think that's really instrumental. And hats off to you for doing that. Quite frankly, one of the things that we've really started to focus on is equipping our directors and coaches with those same type strategies
Hmm.
that you just talked about right there. Listen, a president, a VP, a dean, provost, whatever, has gone to a gym to watch a game. They've gone to
Yeah.
a soccer field to watch a match, something like that. They understand that. They've seen that firsthand. A lot of them have not seen a team compete in Valorant, a team compete in Overwatch,
Right.
etc. So how do you make sure that you incorporate them, you share that with them, you make them a part of that experience? So exactly what you just said. They see that firsthand and they say, I get it now. I might not
Right.
understand, like me. I might not
Right.
understand the ins and outs, the rules, what's happening, the strategies, any of that stuff, but I understand the camaraderie, the teamwork of it, and that's what it's all about.
Yeah, for sure. A transferable, that's a transferable thing between totally different ideas. Traditional and esports, they're very different, but there's so many things that correlate between the two because it
Absolutely.
ultimately comes down to what is a competition, and what does that mean for the students and people involved in it. So I love it. I love it.
Absolutely right.
Um,
Absolutely right. Absolutely right.
I was going to ask, what are you excited about for esports in collegiate esports? Like, what are you excited about for the future of it? It sounds like in-person events is part of that. Anything else that like
Yep.
you're excited to see in the collegiate esports space?
I think and this is a weird thing to say for us, probably as a conference office that works with schools, all levels, all divisions, location throughout North America. But what's been really special and really cool for us in the Great American Conference, as an example, this is the number of collegiate conferences that are now adopting to varying levels. I mean, quite frankly, a conference office is beginning to say, "Hey, I see this is happening. I know our schools are competing in it. How do we support it?" And ultimately, I think that's really good for the legitimization of the space. I think that, Cody, when you talk about what we're excited about, working with the Great American Conference, it's our first Division II conference partner that we're going to be working with. We work with a handful of Division I conferences already, which is great. I think it's a really good opportunity to help tell the story, and to help open eyes for people that might not understand it. At the end of the day, what we just touched on a moment ago, it's making sure that constituents on your campus outside of esports, your community's got it, right? They get it. They've lived it. They breathe it. They want to compete. They're competing. They're successful. They're having a great time. They're having a great experience. It's making sure that other people on campus understand what's going on, and how do we support that at the NECC. And I think that's the type of stuff we talk about. Hey, let's do some stuff. We stream a ton of matches. How do we adjust our digital strategy so that, yes, we're still going to stream, but we're going to do some more featured pieces on our communities, on our programs, on our people, because
Yeah.
those are the things. Not to say that the match isn't important. That's the thing. We built on through competition. That's our model. To provide that experience, ideally. But now it's those other aspects, so that the president begins to understand and say, hey, I never knew that Steve was on the Rocket League team, and he's a 3.8 student athlete, and he's volunteering, and he's a great kid, and he's going to graduate in May with a degree in bio.
Right.
That's the stuff that we need to help tell those stories. And ultimately, I think as this evolves, you're starting to see some people do some really good work in the space. Some educational studies of, like, what is, that great NCA piece that, the student athlete graduates at a much higher rate than the traditional
Right.
student on campus across
Correct. Yeah.
all three levels. So my guess, we don't have great numbers to back this up yet, but there are people doing really good stuff, doing studies that are going to be very significant going forward, that say that esports is achieving at the same, if not a higher level than the traditional student athlete population on campus. And that's the stuff that when people start to see that, if we can support those initiatives, support those efforts, and begin to provide that data and those, those examples of success, I think that's what's really going to be meaningful as this thing goes forward. So that's, that's really been exciting to me. I would like to think, that we do a pretty good job with competition. Listen, we're far from perfect.
Yeah.
I'll be the first to tell you that. I live in the weeds, and I'm the first person to say we got to do a million things better. But I think ultimately that's the next thing, that if we can do competition pretty well, and then we can begin to get some eyeballs from people that might not be tuning in. They're not going to go to that Twitch link, or they're not
Right.
going to, a president's not going to hit that thing. They're not going to sign up for Twitch, but they might watch that 30-second video on Twitter or on Instagram or on social or in their campus paper or whatever it may be, that's about that player in that community. I think that's what's really going to be meaningful as we go forward.
You remind me of so I don't like watching football, Jacob. Like I can't stand watching football, especially the NFL. But they do what you described really well. They do like player showcases, and they talk about, oh, this
Yep.
player came from this background and now he's here. They do a really
Yep.
good job of that, of like explaining the story behind what's happening. And I agree. I think that's gonna be really exciting to see, because then we'll be able to see more of it. A lot of it we don't see. It's a lot of things happening behind closed doors, and efforts that are going unnoticed at times. But even this, even this conversation we're having, I shared this with our school. I said, hey, we're having this. There's an effort to now get this tied into our academics. How do we get
That's
our
awesome.
business
Right.
students watching this? How do we get our people in marketing watching this? Like, how can we as an esports platform help support and educate people? And I think that's also a very unique and neat space for us to be in, is this whole education teaching side of things. And you and I talked about development. And so this,
Yes.
my next part for you is really
Mhm.
about development, right? We have a lot of people in the esports space who this is their first role in this. This could be, they just graduated college and now they're running an esports program. And so there's a lot of
Absolutely.
people who just, they don't have the development. Can you talk about like what is the development looking like? Anything coming up that might help these coaches and directors, and speak on that, maybe on development.
Yeah, I think for us, listen, we're going into our fifth year. Originally started as your Valorant team could have a good experience competing in the NECC. That's where we started. We've talked about that. As we've grown, I guess as we've matured in some ways, it's become those other opportunities that we need to do a better job of. And that's professional development. That's exactly that personalization, that storytelling concept and model that's been so successful and that's been transformed. Listen, people just watch the Olympics, right? The Olympics had massive ratings. Nobody knows who these people are
Right.
until every 4 years rolls around, and then you hear this unbelievable story about somebody, and you're like rooting for them, like you're their best friend or their brother or their sister or whatever it may be. That's the stuff that I think ultimately, as we go forward, if we can support this community, and you're absolutely right, a lot of programs. Listen, we were very lucky in terms of timeline, and this is a very, very weird thing to say. We were all systems go before COVID. We were operating the semester prior to COVID, when it shut the world down. Um, and all of a sudden, every school said, "Well, I don't have traditional athletics. What can I offer my community?" And they said, "We can do esports because you can be,
Yeah.
you can be remote. You don't have to be in person. There's no risk really, relative to being running next to somebody or guarding somebody or something like that." So all of a sudden, there was this massive spike in collegiate esports programs,
Right.
and unfortunately, a lot of them weren't set up to succeed. They were set up to fail. They were quick hire, move quick, boom, 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 because of timeline, because of need, because of necessity. So now you're starting to see schools, and especially, I mean, higher education is a real tough place right now. There's a
Yes.
lot of schools that are really struggling, dealing with the fallouts from COVID, dealing with the cliff of, enrollment issues and things like that. Um, and now they're starting to look at, all right, we started esports 4 5 years ago, whatever it may be. What's the ROI? What am I getting out of that? And I
Yeah.
think for us, it's central to equip our directors, our coaches, our program leaders, with the tools so that they can speak to a president who doesn't understand anything about esports other
Right.
than, hey, we spend X and Y comes in because of the program. And they're saying, well, that was the loss. Why are we continuing to sponsor? Why are we continuing to offer that? Is that worth doing, or should we cut that? Should we just X that out? We
Right.
saw a very prominent program that was eliminated, that was announced earlier today, and it was eye opening. So I think in terms of what we do What we need to do is provide our community, our leaders with those tools to speak that language. Hey, listen, yes, maybe X versus Y, it's a loss financially. But you know what? We've got 12 young men and women on this campus that wouldn't have been here otherwise if not for the esports program. They would have never come to East Central University. They would have
Right.
never come to OU or whatever it may be.
Right.
Whatever, choose that school. And there's real value there. So that's the stuff that we need to equip our community with so that they can speak that language and say, hey, not only are we doing great things, not only do we have this burgeoning, this growing community that's having a great experience. This is their life. This is their friend group. This is the people that they go to the dining hall with, they're living with, in the apartments they're choosing to live, blah, 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 whatever. But ultimately, this is a really good thing for the university. And these are all the reasons why. So that's the thing that as you talk about us as a membership organization, professional development, yes. But ultimately, I think it's providing our directors, our leaders with those tools so that they can go in and have a meeting with a president, or like you said, invite a president, say, hey, we got this match on Tuesday night. Just come down for half an hour. I'm not asking you to stay for 3 hours. Just come down and check it out. Peek your head in, take some hands, and introduce yourself. And I think if we can do that, then as you said, you're a great example of that. You had that experience with your president. Now all of a sudden they're like, this is great.
Yeah.
What do you need? And that's the stuff that's going to help make this continue to grow and get that continued buy-in from the people that ultimately are the ones that are making the decisions financially on campus.
That's the key. Who's making the decisions? Jacob, we are over about 5 minutes. Are you good to stay on? I've got like a couple more questions for you. If not,
absolutely. No, good.
Go, awesome. Well, I appreciate
I love
you.
This. I love those too. Yeah, no, you're the best. I love this.
This is great. That's what I told you. I was like, it's funny watching you and I talk because like we're so into it, and it's just like boom, 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 boom. Like we're on it.
This is what I love. Like going back to earlier. This is what I love. Like you and I never met.
Yeah.
In terms of person, like we never shaking. I would, without a doubt, we would be friends. And this is the stuff that is so meaningful to me about this community that we would have never crossed paths if I was in that other world. And that's that's just the reality of it. But the fact that we're able to have these conversations, to have this shared passion for this community and wanting to support and promote and help, that's what this is all about. That's what's really cool about this whole thing.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Sorry,
I agree. No, that was perfect. Okay, so my next question is, I get asked a lot about sponsorships, like corporate sponsorships. What are we doing for corporate sponsors? So my question for you is, are you seeing any, like, what would be an example of a corporate sponsor that surprised you? Like, why are they here? Like, do you have any examples of that, of like a sponsor or a thing that was, you don't have to share who it was, but maybe just what type of product or thing it was?
Sure. Again, I'm an outsider to the space. We are talking with an organization that sells hand warmers. When they reached out, I was like thinking like, you're standing outside in the snow or at a soccer game or at a football game and you need to keep your hands warm, these electric hand warmers. But no, it's for promotion of blood flow within the gaming community. That's interesting to me. I didn't know that. I think when you talk about partners and when you talk about sponsors, unfortunately, there was this massive bubble that we all know, and we've all seen the winter talk with the pro scene and stuff like that, and that's really, really a bummer. I think what's you need to teach brands about what this is going to be. That brands, by and large, and partners that we work with, it's a lot of education. It's a lot of learning about the space and about this community. And much like myself, I think that when you talk to potential partners, talk to potential sponsors, it's a lot like what we were just talking about. Like they see the growth, they see the numbers, they see the participation rates, and they're like, oh, we got to get in that, right? That's a valuable demographic, 18 to 22-year-olds. That's the most valuable demographic. We give them be customers. They can be customers for life for the next 60 years. They'll buy our product for the next 60 years. But they get in, and I've been guilty of this myself. We have meetings with potential partners, and I say, well, we're the NECC. We work with X number of schools, and we're proud, and we're throughout North America. And we can do whatever you want. And they say, well, what can you do for us? I say, well, what do you want? Anyway, I don't know. What can you do for us? And we sort of have this like staring contest. And it's like, I don't know. Well, what do you want to do? And I think that a lot of it has been framed through competition because that's what we understand. Hey, you can sponsor a tournament. You can do prizing, whatever. That's sort of, okay, you have X number of teams. You can sort of see the key performance indicators, the ROI or whatever. We got X number of programs from X number of universities that participated. Great. But what we've tried to shift towards in some ways is providing for and supporting the community in a more meaningful way. One of our partners is Buy Blue Light. They do blue light glasses in terms of ideally working to prevent eye fatigue, and that in they've obviously identified that esports is a massive facet of their
Oh
their
yeah,
their
absolutely.
potential customer base, obviously.
Absolutely.
But what they've done is they've said, hey, we want to give you money and you help offset the cost of some of your members that don't have, some of your clubs that don't have a budget to compete in the NECC. We're going to help offset that cost. That's the stuff that's really meaningful, where we have schools, we have an application process, we have schools that say, hey, I'd love to compete in the NECC, but we can't afford $1,300. Now, first of all, we're going to find a way to work with you, because we're not going to say thanks, but no thanks. But
Yeah.
ultimately, that ability to say, hey, because of that partnership, we're going to help offset your cost. That's the really meaningful stuff that leads to continued foster and growth with partners. And that's been our shift. Is competition, yes, it's easy, it's deliverable. Yes, we can host a competition over a weekend and you can register and blah blah blah, all the same beats and rhythms that we've seen a million times, and that's still great, and we'll still do that until we're blue in the face, if that's what partners and brands want. But what we're trying to shift, we're trying to educate and say, hey, listen, this is a long play. You're not going to, if you see in versus out right now, you're not going to get you're
Yeah.
going to spend $2,500. You're not going to get $2,500 in return in terms of purchase or whatever what you're looking for. But if you see this as an investment in the growth of the space for a company like a blue light glass company that says, hey, listen, if we've got 1 million players today, but in 5 years from now we've got 2 million players, that's now your potential customer base has now doubled, and you've
Right.
supported that infrastructure in growing in that way. So that's been a shift. I'll be honest, I sit in a lot, basically all of our conversations in that space, and a lot of times it's really, hey, what can you do? What can you offer? They understand the beats of, we sponsor the football program at Oklahoma.
Yeah.
They
Right. Right.
understand that, right? They've done that for 50 years. They know what they get from that billboard or that ad in the program or that, that ad on the sideline or whatever it may be. But they don't understand what they're getting from esports. And so that's an interesting challenge, but it's also an interesting opportunity that presents itself if you can get long-term buy-in. And we're working with an electronics partner right now that has been a partner in the past. They're great. We love working with them, but we're really trying to get them to buy in at a level where it's like, listen, if this thing grows, if this whole community grows like this, then your numbers are going to grow like this as well.
Yeah.
If it flattens, then you're going to cap at some point. So that's been an interesting challenge, and it's been a fun challenge, quite frankly. But that's the partnership thing. I think a lot of people hop in and say, "Oh, there's all this money in this." There isn't. I'll be honest. Wish there
I know. Yeah, I agree
there
with you.
was. I wish there was. But 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 there's a lot of communities, and there's a lot of people in different brands and different partnerships and things like that are beginning to dip their toes in and say, hey, there's this space that's really growing. I want to learn more about it. And then it's incumbent upon us to provide them with those tools, to provide them with, hey, yes, you're not going to get $1 million in revenue, but you know what? You're going to have 1 million more players, or 100,000 or 5 more players that might become a potential customer for you. And ultimately, that's what you're looking for. So that's the thing that's been, in terms of partnerships, it's been a real challenge. I'm not a salesman. I stink at it. But those conversations have always been very interesting. And we've tried to shift the narrative a little bit about, listen, if you think about dollars in versus dollars out, it's a no-go. Don't talk to us. Because you're going to lose money. You're not going to be happy with, your relationship with us. But if you see this as a real partnership and that you're invested in our growth, we're invested in your growth, then there's going to be a certain level of success that you're going to see. And it's not going to be fall of 2024, but it's going to grow. And that's where you're going to see the ROI ultimately down the line.
Yeah, it's funny. I think that's what's been happening for me too, is like I will meet with a donor or sponsor and they have no idea, especially a
Yeah.
sponsor. They don't even know how their brand will be leveraged. Like they don't even know what we would do. So a lot of times, today was a good example. I had to get really creative on the spot and come up with, okay, here's an idea of what this
Yeah.
might look like. And I could tell his ears perked up when I said it. So it's like you
Yeah.
have to also be creative and find, okay, what me as this program, I have this platform. How can I then showcase what this person has or wants? And that's a really difficult thing to do. And especially if they don't know the space, it's incredibly challenging. So I see that. And thank you for sharing that on those couple examples. I was hoping that
Yeah.
was perfect. What you did was perfect.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's a question in chat. It talks about there's a stigma about joining esports, and I'm sure you've seen this, and you've probably seen a lot of the stigma and about esports. I know, and I think everybody knows it's improving, it's changing. But the question is, as a new player, what would you give advice for to help encourage students to join a collegiate esports program, especially if the stigma is part of their concern? What advice would you give?
I think ultimately, listen, I'm like I said, I'm in my mid upper 40s now. When I was young, I would go to the park and play basketball for 6 hours during the summer, and that was my community. That was what I did. Those are my friends. This community now, younger people, especially young people that are thinking about joining a team, this is an opportunity um, to have that become your community, your friends, all the people you want to hang out with. It's a shared love of a game or a title or the competition or whatever you define it as, whatever lens you see that as. But ultimately, it is your community, and that is very meaningful. At the end of the day, I think about my mom a lot. She used to be she worked in higher education, and she used to talk about like the one thing we all want to know is if you start a new place, who are you going to sit with at lunch? There's always that hesitation. There's always that fear of I
Right.
don't know anybody, and what do you do? Well, what you're going to know is you're going to walk in and you're going to say, "Hey, I play Valorant." And you're going to meet somebody, and they're going to say, "I play Valorant too." And you're going to say, "You want
Right.
to play?" And you're going to say, "Yeah, let's play," or whatever.
Right.
That's whatever title, whatever team, whatever that. But that shared bond is meaningful, and that's all we are looking for in this world is that shared commonality. That's the stuff that friendships are leveraged from. That's the stuff that long-term relationships are built off of. So when it talks about the stigma, sure, there's a stigma, but ultimately, I think as you talk about the fact that it's maturing and the fact that everybody is now doing it, that
Hmm.
stigma is going to be gone in the next listen very quickly, and
Yeah.
it's declined very rapidly. So that's what I would share is that like it's hard. Walk in, introduce yourself, and say, "Hey, my name is Steve, and I play Rocket League." And somebody's gonna say, "Steve, I'm Sally. I play Rocket League too." And
Right.
and right there, whether you do anything else, right there, you're gonna have that shared thing. That if nothing else, you're gonna have that shared commonality that's meaningful. So I think the stigma. Listen, there's no doubt it exists. But I think as we start seeing resources, as we start seeing things happen in the space, that's going by the wayside very, very quickly, and I'm very happy about that because ultimately this is the community, and I think that's very meaningful to be a part of that experience and join a team. And the other thing, listen, the other thing, Cody, I should continue on with this is that with regards to traditional athletics, you have to have a certain level of ability in terms of a physical ability.
Yeah. The
What I love
physicality to it.
exactly right. Exactly right. Now there's a mental capacity. There's definitely a physical capacity to get good and play at that level. But at the end of the day, there is nothing more meaningful than the fact that everybody, whether you are pro level, casual, just picked up a game, no idea what the heck you're doing, you can play. And at the end of the day, that is awesome. And the fact that we work with programs that have unbelievably high level teams to unbelievably casual level teams and everything in between, that is awesome because you can be a part of that thing. And as we talked about earlier, you can high five your teammate when you win that match, you win that game, you win that whatever it may be, map, whatever it is. Or you can slam your controller down in disgust and say, "That sucked, we lost." And that thing, that's the thing we're all searching for. That moment, that high five, that handshake, whatever it may be, that's what's really, really cool. And that's what's really meaningful. So I would say that stigma, yeah, there's probably some of it still existing from older people, but ultimately that's going to be gone in the next generation, if not sooner.
I love that community sentiment. I keep track of like when students come to me and ask me. So if you ask me a question, student, I will keep track of it just so you know. But it's mostly for me to like understand and kind of check like where are they coming from? Like what are some common questions? I didn't get thanked for scholarship money that much, which I am not shocked. But I did have students come to me, three of them actually, and really focus in on how thankful they were to now be part of a community of people and how excited they were to come back in the fall. And I
Excellent.
don't remember ever being excited about coming back to college. Like I was ready for it, but I wasn't pumped. I wasn't like, I cannot wait. And I have students that they cannot wait to come back. And that's so
That's
incredibly
awesome.
rare. So to your point, the community side of it, and to the question, I agree. I think it's more of the community and what it brings that person. And that's why it's important. And the stigma will go away. It will definitely go away
Absolutely.
over time.
Couldn't agree more. I think that's awesome. That's a great example, and hats off to you and the community there that you've built. I think it's really special, and to hear those words, it just reaffirms why you do what you do. I mean,
Yeah,
that's what it's all about.
I agree. So a couple questions here.
Sure, sure,
Uh,
sure.
you kind of mentioned it, and you may not need to answer it again. You may just say I've already. But How has your career in esports impacted you in your life? And I would encourage
Oh,
you to share like things about, like, for example, me with esports. It has impacted my family life. I am a much happier person now. I get home and I'm not as angry. I play with my kids. Like, it has made some significant impacts on my life. So could you
that's
share any
awesome.
what impacts esports has had as your career?
Yeah, it's a great question. I will tell you, first of all, I wouldn't have been able to do it without support from my wife because it was a massive pay cut for our family, for me personally. It's a labor of love, and I don't regret that. I don't say that as a negative. I say that as probably a positive that we're, our team is so passionate. And like I said earlier, nobody on our team like is getting rich doing this. They're doing it because they're passionate about the community that we're just talked about. In terms of me, I will tell you personally, I have a 9-year-old son, and a long time ago, before I got into this world, I probably would have pushed back on him playing games. Now he plays games, and I am extremely supportive. I think it's awesome that he is playing Minecraft with his friends online, Roblox with his friends online, stuff like that. I think that's really, really special and really, really cool. The other thing I would share, Cody, that I talked about earlier, that's really meaningful to me is I'm an outsider. I mean, I'm literally like 5 years into this world, into this space to some degree, and there are so many people in my world that I talk to on a daily basis that I consider very good friends, whether they're in Oklahoma, I'm in Massachusetts, whether they're in Oklahoma, Florida, Michigan, California, Toronto, you name it. That I consider dear friends. And that, when you talk about community for the players, that's become my community in many ways. Now I still have a great network of friends that I've had for a long time, and people I went to high school with, people I went to college with, and the like that I still stay in touch with. But the ability to meet all these new people, and again, as you and I have connected in this way, is a perfect example of like, I respect the heck out of what you're doing. How can I help? And you've been like, I respect the heck out of what you're doing. How can I help?
Yeah.
And that's the stuff when you talk about this thing and you talk about, hey, I'm talking with X University, and they're picking my brain about how I built my program at East Central, and what worked and what didn't. Same thing for us. We talk a lot about that. We are so far from perfect, so far from where the finished product will be. But it's that thing of like, we know we started here, and we're going to be better today than we were yesterday, and ideally, and our goal is to be better tomorrow than we are today, and that's all we can ask for. So in terms of my life personally, it's been a very, very significant shift. Um, but it's opened a lot of doors. It's opened a lot of opportunities. It's opened a lot of friendships and conversations that I would have never expected. And ultimately, it's provided me with a lot of lifelong friendships that literally 5 years ago there was no way in heck that you and I were ever going to cross paths.
Right.
And now I would reach out to you, and I've talked about this with you. I'm going to reach out to you and pick
Hmm.
your brain about things
Sure.
that we're doing and things like that. And I know you're going to say yes.
Yeah.
And I know
Absolutely.
you're going to say that. And that's, again, I come from traditional athletics, and I wasn't a coach, but I came from a space where it was very competitive, it was very territorial, and esports is the exact opposite. So that is really, really special to me, and it's affected my life daily. Now, my wife would say I'm miserable because I'm stressed about money, about work, about all that stuff that we're
Right.
doing, about running a small business, stuff like that. And she's not wrong, but those other things are very, very meaningful to me, and I don't take them for granted at all.
Yeah, I share with people. There are many things about my job I don't like. Like, let's be very clear. Like, there are many things I'm like,
Sure.
I'm not looking forward to this. Like, I don't want to do this. But the other things that are positive far outweigh whatever negatives have come from it. And yeah, so thank you for sharing that. And I
Of course.
my kids play too. I've been a gamer my whole life, but it's the same. It's true for me too. Like the gymnastics and traditional sports, I was never in that, so I have to stretch and learn to do that. So thank you for doing that, and thank you for, learning something totally out of your wheelhouse and
Yeah.
accepting it. And I will say one of the funny things I've been doing lately is I have been reaching out to traditional athletics and to get their advice, because I know at some point they're going to say, "Oh, well, we can't help you anymore." And it's when esports gets as big as traditional athletics, that's when it will
Right.
become a competition between those two. And so I'm trying to take advantage of that now, knowing that that will probably happen. So very
Very
cool.
well said. Very well said. That's a very, very good statement of where we are. Absolutely agree.
Yeah. So last one for you, and obviously you can add anything you'd like, but what advice would you give anyone looking to go into esports as their career?
I think you've got to love it. You've got to be willing to grind. I think that this community Listen, this is an evolving space. There's very few people that are pulling down significant amounts of revenue in the space, specifically collegiate.
Hmm.
I can speak for us. It's our staff is not well paid, myself included. And so it's very much a labor of love. But I think what I keep coming back to is that shared passion. So if you have that passion, don't do it and say, "Oh God, I'm working 50 hours this week and I'm making X."
Yeah.
Don't do it that way. You've got to do it because you love it. And I think that when somebody reaches out, and listen, this is true of anything. We're a customer service organization in many ways,
Hmm.
and people tend to reach out or post about negative stuff. Very rarely do you reach out and say, "Hey, that was great, thank you." But what I would say is those moments when people reach out and say, "Thank you, this was awesome," or this could have been a little bit better, but it was great overall, or whatever it
Right.
may be. Um, those are really meaningful. I had a director reached out today and said, "Hey, we can't wait for the season. We love what you guys are doing. We've seen all the announcements. We can't wait to start." That really is what keeps you going. In many ways, I'm not. I'm probably. We're comfortable. We're not wealthy by any stretch, but I'm not one of those people that has aspirations of living a lifestyle that is outside my means. I'm very content with where we are, who we are, what we are. And those meaningful conversations, those meaningful things that you can hopefully provide, those meaningful experiences, that to me is why you do this thing. It's not because you're going to make 150, $200,000 because you aren't.
Right.
I mean, I hope
Right.
I hope someday we all are. Right now we are far, far, far from that. So right now you've got to be willing to say, "Hey, I'm willing to work in this, and I want to work in this, and I want to grow, and I want to get better. And I'm not going to make a lot of money, but I'm going to do it because I have a passion for it." And that's the stuff that's really, really going to project and going to shape the future leaders, I think, of the industry as a whole.
Yeah, totally agree with that. Totally, I 1,000% agree with that sentiment. Honestly, it is going to be a lot of grind, and it is for me too. I
Yep.
mean, like let's be honest, I'm not now, but I was the first full time director of any esport D2 university in Oklahoma. Like that's huge, but that means that all
That's
the other
meaningful. Yeah.
schools they're doing multiple jobs. Their directors or coaches are doing multiple roles, and so it's not at even the space where people are full time yet. It's just getting there, but it's not even there yet. So it is going to be a grind, and I'll be honest, I started volunteering to coach here just because I saw they had a program. It was struggling, and I said, hey, let me help at least be there to coach. And so if you're willing to volunteer to do something for free and you have a passion behind it, that's what you continue to work on and try to, like what Jacob said, you got to grind and get into it, but you have to also be aware this is a long game and it's going to take a minute for it to get to what I call the limelight or the luxury light. And it will definitely get there. Just we don't know when. We don't know when.
And I think that, and I think just to echo that statement, I think that ultimately that's what's really special about this space right now is think about how many people are doing that just because of the passion, just
Right.
because they love it, just because they want to provide. And especially, listen, especially in higher ed, especially in the K through 12 space. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, those people are doing it just because they want to provide that experience, that opportunity for their student athletes, for those students. And that is awesome. That for me, like it's not about the check, it's not about the dollar. It's just because they want to provide that experience for their community, and that to me is, it's really cliche, but you can't put a price on that. I mean, that is why you think about life, you think about experience, you think about this thing as a whole. That is really, really very meaningful and very, very special.
Yep, I agree. I agree. Jacob, it has been amazing having you on. Thank you so much for being
Thank
our
you.
first. You have any questions for me, or feel free to fire away. I've asked you like a bazillion
No,
questions.
no. What I want to know, and like we've talked, and people don't know, we had a wonderful conversation when we first met, a couple months ago. What I want to know, and what I want to be very transparent with you and your community about, is that like I say, we are trying to do the best we can. We don't know what we don't know. So what I would ask of you specifically and your community is provide that feedback. Say, hey, that was good, but have you thought about doing this? Because
Sure.
I think we come at it from a place of like we're trying. And listen, we work with a lot of schools, and we're very proud of that fact. We are not going to be all things to all teams or all schools, all programs. We can never be that. But what I would ask of you and your community, your players, whether they are best, very casual, whatever it may be, director level, all the way down to incoming freshman who's like, I'm on the team, here we go.
Right.
Provide that feedback. Say, I'd like to see this. And I can't guarantee we're gonna say we're gonna do that. I can't guarantee we're gonna change something or do something. But ultimately what I will say about our team and our staff is that we'll listen and we'll hear, and we will certainly try to get better as a result of that feedback. That's how we get better as an organization. We don't get better being remote and saying, we're gonna do this thing and hop on board or hop out. That's not where we
Yeah.
are. And I think that is what I would ask of you, Cody, and everybody at East Central in your program, within that community, that you're willing to share that. My information is public. It's Jacob at neccathletics.com. I'm glad to give out cell Discord Jacob Van Ryan. It's not clever, but that's my Discord handle, all that stuff. Please, please reach out, and share that with me, because that makes us a better organization, and that's what we're trying to do every day.
Yeah. Well, I think by this point you probably know I will reach out. I tend to do
I'm
this.
glad.
The squeaky wheel gets the oil for me for sure, and I become a very squeaky wheel at times. I know that, and it's quite annoying to our IT department and people around me. But that's okay. That's I the same way. I think without feedback, people won't improve, and if you don't have the courage
Absolutely.
to give the feedback, then you can't complain. And I think I have a no fear feedback policy where I don't fear giving people feedback, no matter who it is. But it's critical that you do, because of those, like what you said, you can't get better if you don't know.
Couldn't agree more. Yep, well said.
Awesome. Well, Jacob, thank you so much for being on here. I appreciate it so much. I know my group is saying thanks a bunch as well. This is obviously going to go on Twitch, so I will shorten this interview so that if you want to share it with your group, feel free to. But thank you so much for being here, Jacob. I appreciate you so much.
And awesome. Thank you, Cody. It's wonderful to connect.
Of course. Have a great rest of your day.
You too.
Okay. We are back. How was that? What did you all think of that? What did you think of the interview? Tell me in chat. I'm gonna take a breather for just a second. Whew. What'd y'all think about that? Any good thoughts? Mystic, you said it was echoing a lot. Hopefully not. Uh-oh. Hopefully it was only a little bit. I'll have to check when we go back to it. Awesome. Thank you, Destiny. It was excellent. Hopefully you guys can see why I like Jacob a lot. He's very energetic, but he's very tactful, and really sharp. And he's applying that to esports. And it's really interesting, especially with his traditional sports background. From him coming from traditional sports to esports. The reason though I say that is because I expect more of that. I expect as collegiate esports grows, we will see more people from traditional athletics migrate to esports. And so I foresee that happening more. Jacob is probably one of the first to do that, in a big way, but I would foresee that. And even today, the coaches that came in for cross country, they were asking me questions about like, oh, are you going to have coaches? Are you going to, yeah, they're interested in that. So, yeah, I'm glad that I wanted you to hear from somebody else, not just me. Let me see. Endwatch, what do you say? It's weird to see people who don't play. Yeah, so it's weird to see people who don't play games working in esports. It is very unique. What's interesting about Jacob is he is very excited about it, even though he doesn't know anything. Like he clearly says, I don't know much about it, but he's super into it. I have encountered just as many people that don't play games and then are not into it, but are doing it. You know what I mean? So he's unique in that he doesn't play, but he's super into it. And I think that's incredible value, but why he's such a unique character and why I wanted you guys to hear from him. But I agree. I agree with that. Crazy to hear from someone who loves the program, doesn't really play the games. Yeah, I agree. And I get asked that a lot too. You know, honestly, when I'm around other directors, and like head coaches, it's pretty common for us to talk about like who is actually playing. And even in my level, about where I am, about 50%, roughly 50% of the directors and coaches that I talk to don't actively play. And then me, like it's usually when I talk about it, it's shocking to people because I say, oh yeah, I play League, you know, I play Rocket League, I'll pick up Fortnite. Like I'll play, I always say, I will just play and be at least involved in whatever games our players are, because I want to be able to at least speak their language and be able to relate and understand what they're going in. But yeah, it's so yeah, I just have that mentality. So when I explain that to other people, I usually get met with, what? Why would you do that? Like, how do you keep up with all that? Like, why do you like? I usually get met with skepticism and like confusion, which shouldn't be. But then also I get met with, wow, that's really cool that you do that. So I don't know. That's a tough one. I will always try to stay up to date with what everybody's doing, but it's also because I've been gaming since I was 5. You know, I've been playing since I was 5 years old. So it's, to me, it's a part of my life. It's a daily thing. I play games every day of my life. It's just part of who I am. Um, so that's for me. It would be foreign for me if it was like baseball. If I all of a sudden took over the baseball team like tomorrow, it would be the same thing for me. I'd have to learn all about it and figure it out. But I would do it. I'd figure it out. I would learn and figure it out, and I would start to play so I could at least understand what they were doing. At least. Cool. Awesome. You're in and out. Good. Many people that don't play or haven't in a good while still so passionate about the sports and athletes they follow. That's a good point. You know, what we don't have, and Jacob kind of talked about it a little bit, was with traditional athletics, they have a lot of people, but they have a lot of history. And history is important because history is what people follow and pay attention to. You know, that's what they follow. They get really into a certain athlete, and then they'll follow that athlete's career. They'll, kind of like Cool saying, they will follow that person and still be so passionate about it, even though it could be 10 years down the road and they haven't touched a basketball in 10 years, but all of a sudden they're super into collegiate basketball because they can watch and experience that again. Esports will undoubtedly be the same way. We don't have the history that the other sports do. We don't have, East Central has been here for 115 years, and I think we've had a football team for 80 of those years, or some crazy, we have had esports here for about a year, I'm saying, maybe 2. I consider this year 2 for our program, honestly. Like I don't consider the stuff that happened before remotely what we were trying to do and what should have been. And there are the players that were part of that can speak to that and very much attest to what it was like before and what it is now. So, I'm glad for that. I'm glad that it is so different, about how it was then. And Jesse's on here, Tinfoil Hatman. He can, go on for a day about it, but it's very different now. And so now I get to see, I have some players from the past who are still, remember what it was like and, are loving what's happening. And then I have new people coming in who are excited about it, but they're excited about what they're being given now. Not so much what they've experienced before. And so it's nice having the older, more tenured players here to kind of like, yeah, well, it wasn't always like this. Like, you got to remember this because it has come a long ways. And so that humbleness, kind of what Jacob said, like, I don't ever want us to forget that, yeah, we had no money, we had no person, we had no computers. Like, it could very quickly get to that again. And like, we have to be very conscious of that and constantly try to do better and do more. And Jacob talked about like improvement. I mean, he talked about improvement. That was the number one thing I wrote down. He talked about improvement constantly. They want to do better. They want to learn. They want to do this and this. That level of improvements is super important. And I'm the same way. I think about everything that I do every day. Every conversation I have with somebody, I replay in my head 10 times. I talked to somebody on the phone today. If you're on here, you know who you are, but I'll think about it all day, and I'll think about it tonight. Like, what should I have said differently? What could I have done differently? And I get stuck in that sometimes, but it's also my own development, my own self-development. But that constant improvement is super important. And so I consider this year 2 for us. How Enwatch has a question. How would someone go about learning games they don't necessarily play or can't play, but want to know more about it because they want to support our teams? Couple things. We are very lucky in the esports space because of the online capabilities of what we do. One of the unique things that I'm off, and I hate to toot my own horn or whatever, but one of the unique things that I offer is actually talking through the games and teaching about them. And so what I would recommend with that is, you can go online and look up guides on games. I also am one where I will just flat out tell someone, I don't know, you're going to have to teach me, and sit down with them and learn. that's a big part of it. I'll sit down and learn. A lot of times just picking it up myself and trying it. You know, the nice thing about games, especially video games, is the barrier to entry. Jacob kind of mentioned a little bit about it. The barrier to entry for esports is so minimal that we're seeing kids as early as 4 or 5, and all the way up until people in their 90s are still competing in esports. And the reason is because, I mean, I can hold a controller in my hand. That doesn't require much range of motion. I don't have to move a whole lot. I could be stationary and do it. And honestly, if you look at a controller, one of the interesting things that if you have, I don't know if you've thought about this, but the distance between the buttons is actually quite particular to support people with disabilities. And Microsoft and PlayStation have the design for, and even Steam, the other controller makers have these designs. So one person asked me a long time ago, they said, why are the controllers all so similar? Like, why do they all look? It has to do with the accessibility and disabilities. They want to make these controllers so that someone who's disabled can still use it. In fact, Microsoft is probably the biggest pioneer of this, but Microsoft releases a whole series of products, not software. I'll pull it up and I'll show you. Microsoft accessible. Microsoft actually puts out a series of equipment that is designed for people who have disabilities. So one, the barrier to entry is low enough to where most people who don't play games could at least try it. And the reason I say they could at least try it is because Fortnite is a great example. To be able to play Fortnite is not that difficult. The game is free. If you have a Samsung phone, you can play it on your phone. If you don't, you can get a Nintendo Switch and play it. The requirements to run it on a computer you probably have at your house will probably work. It's a very easy to run game. So you could feasibly try it and actually, go in and give it a shot. And if you don't have the equipment, that's where you'd say, hey, Cody, can I come up to your lab and play for a couple hours? And you talk to me about League of Legends. Like that's ultimately another thing that I would recommend is finding someone or someplace to go to learn about it in person. And especially where you could try the system or game out yourself. A good example of that, Endwatch, I'll give you is virtual reality is a great example of that. I haven't seen a whole lot of virtual reality esports. I'm not sure if that will ever happen. I don't know, but that would be one where a lot of people would not have access to that, or maybe they would want to learn, and we would have to have something to do that. So as an esport program, I could help facilitate that and teach people about that product. So that is ultimately what I would recommend is, one, you have a lot of resources online and a lot of people in the community that can help explain it, teach it without having to really interact with anybody. If you're okay with interacting with people, then find somebody who plays the game and have them walk you through it and show you how. And then third would be if you have a college or a program, high school program in the area that does esports, you can reach out to them and ask them to show you or tour. The student I was on the phone with today, I said, hey, come visit, come do a tour of the lab, come hang out for a little bit. Like that's a thing I willingly offer. And so I think kind of what Jacob was saying, we're all in that space right now of willingly offering, to teach and to give support, which is not the same case. If like gymnastics for my daughter is very expensive. It's outrageously expensive, and it is, but it's worth it because of what she gets out of it. If I asked her to be coached for free, the answer would be no, absolutely not. If you asked me to coach you for free, I would say, sure, I'll visit with you and give you some feedback. Not a big deal. So it's just a difference in the way things are set up right now between them. But I'm sure at some point I would have to say, look, I got to charge you my time, whatever. But I wouldn't do that right now. So, and I think that's kind of goes back to your question about how the landscape of support will change over time. But right now you're in a space where it should be pretty easy. Also too, supporting our teams. You don't have to know the game to support the players. Just you being there, just this. You guys are on the channel here, right? You guys are hanging out. Even if you're not chatting with me, you're still supporting me because you're here as a presence. I'll bring it up. It was a great story last semester. One of the parents brought like cupcakes and food to one of the games. Like that little things like that show that the players that you care. Be there. You don't have to bring them gifts, but be there for them. Be there in person. Show up. If we're having an event, be here. You know, if they're playing in person, you're welcome to come up here and hang out. You know, watch the Twitch streams. So you don't have to necessarily know the game to be supportive in that way. And just like if I'm in the stands at a football game, I don't know the rules. I don't know what the heck's going on, but I'm still going to cheer and, you know, be there as a support. You know, just to be there. So those are my advices for you on how to get into it if you're not sure. And you don't have to have the skill. Final thing to add on that: you don't have to have the skill in something to teach or support it. And I think you find that a lot in very technical jobs. Is the people who teach it often can't do it, or they can't anymore. So that is still the case, and so you don't have to necessarily know all the ins and outs to be supportive, or to teach or be helpful. So hopefully that was enough. And watch on that. And then yeah, kudos to Microsoft, Xbox. They are leading the way. And I think this is something that Microsoft does not get a lot of credit for, and they don't get a lot of good publicity and praise for. But this is a big deal to me because honestly, my dad he has a disability. He can't play video games anymore because of a disability he has with his hand. And I've offered to get this for him multiple times because he was a huge Call of Duty player. Like he loved screaming at the TV. Let's be clear. He didn't like playing Call of Duty. He liked screaming at the TV while he played Call of Duty. But he still enjoyed it, and it was an outlet for him, and he likes it. So, but yeah, he could still do that technically if he wanted to. So, good question. Oh yeah, classic. I'm reading Destiny's comment here. Yeah, Destiny called it out just same way. Yep, the commentary. Yeah, our commentators too will educate as well. You know, especially when they're teaching on it. You can always ask me to. Feel free, like, hey, I don't know what this is. Can you play it and talk about it? And I'd be happy. Even like I did it with Valorant. Like, I don't like Valorant, but like I played it for a couple days, and you know, I talked about it, explained what it was, and played it for a whole session of the Coach's Corner. So that's another thing. You can always use me as your guinea pig to play stuff. I thought actually next week we meet to play the new Valve game that has come out. So we might do that as an example. That's a new, Lane Baxi and I have talked about it, but I really do think it could be the next another esport title with how it plays and its setup already. It could very easily become one very fast. So we might see that next semester. And then you never know. That's why I say you never know what we're going to be playing a year from now. You don't know 6 years from now. You have no idea. But you have to be open and have the transferable skills, be coachable, and be ready to adapt to a changing landscape. And that was the quote I gave for the paper. And they took it and they used it. They used my dang quote, y'all. They took it, but it's a good quote. I hope it gets published everywhere. People are looking for students, the business leaders today. When I talk to them, they're looking for people that are highly coachable, people with transferable skills and know how to do that, and people who know how to adapt to the changing landscape of the business world and work, because things will always change, always. That's a topic. So what makes a good esport? Can you maybe like esport game, or what do you mean by esport? You probably meant esport game. I just want to make sure before I even attempt to answer that. But what makes a good esport game? Super Smash Brothers, oddly enough, is incredibly popular as an esport game, but I don't consider that a good esport title, as an example. What is a good esport game is, first, for me personally, and this is this is a personal preference for me, but I promise you that the esport landscape will pretty much define itself in this way, where a good esport competitive title is where 2 or more people are competing against a unit of another 2 or more people of the same size. That's ultimately what you need to make a game. Now, I can make a game where 2 people can play against 2 people. What makes it an esport? Well, there's a couple things that have to happen. The first is that the game has to have active development. The game has to have balance. I think the hardest part for these games is balance. And if you play any esport game or you know anything about them, balance is super important. It is how fair the game is within itself. So the balance behind it. The game has to have very clear rules. that are defined, that the players themselves can understand, follow, execute, and take advantage of. Those things, if you have those elements, then you're most likely going to have a game that requires some skill. You're most likely going to have a game that is a competition, and you're going to have a game that people can learn and work together on. So that's a basic skeleton. However, then you have all these other complicated things like the publisher. The publisher matters. I hate to say it, and I've said this before. No one owns baseball. Nobody owns the sport of baseball. Nobody owns the sport of football. There's nobody that owns that, but somebody does own League of Legends. So the publishers also are a big part of the esport industry, and that's for better or for worse. I still have mixed feelings about it when I think about it, really, but the publishers themselves also have a significant impact on the esport itself and whether or not something becomes an esport. I beta tested the Quidditch Champions. It has all of the elements for an esport. It has competition, right? You're playing, it's 5v5 or 6v, I can't remember what it is, 6v6. You have, abilities, and you have rules, and it's got a time frame, and it has a lot of the elements, but what it's missing is the seriousness, some level of getting better and impacting the game. It didn't feel as serious. Whereas like Overwatch can feel kind of serious. League of Legends feels incredibly serious, almost too serious. So the publishers themselves also have a big impact. So Warner Brothers is publishing, Portkey Games is publishing the new Quidditch Champions, and Warner Brothers and that company doesn't have any esport titles. So they're trying to merge into a market. And it would be the same thing as like another soda. So you could ask, what makes a good soda? What makes a good soda? Like, there are obviously some requirements to that, but the biggest offender of what makes a good soda is ultimately who makes the soda and what do they do for their advertising, their marketing, their, all of that. So you can make a great game that's a great esport game, but if you don't market it and it's not accessible and all that stuff, it's not going to work out. A couple examples. Brawlhalla. I don't know if you've ever heard of Brawlhalla before. Brawlhalla is it's a fighting game. It's a 2D fighting game. It's very similar to Super Smash Brothers. And there are some esport competitions that run through Brawlhalla, but Brawlhalla does not have very much marketing and advertisement at all. And so very few people know about it. So they're kind of a grassroots game that's trying to make it into the esports scene. And they're trying, how I can tell you they're trying is they're starting to work on like sponsorships and tie-ins to try to bring the game. And the whole purpose of that is to get the game more popular. Because what if I make an amazing game that's a great esport that has all those requirements? It's a competition. It has some challenge to it. It's got rules and all of that actively being developed. It's balanced, but no one plays it. No one knows about it. Then it doesn't work out. So the weird one for me is always Super Smash Brothers. Super Smash Brothers is not a great competitive title. There's a lot of reasons for that. The biggest offender of Super Smash Brothers, and this goes into an esport, you have to be able to connect with your competition and compete very seamlessly. Fortnite, I use that as an example. It takes a second. If I tap on someone and I say join lobby, I'm in their lobby in a second. And if we click ready, within 2 minutes, we're in a lobby playing and we're good to go with 100 other people. It seems so simple, but then Nintendo's online system is atrocious. It is absolute dog water, I think is the appropriate term. It's horrible. So although it touts itself as an esport, and I think partly because it just has a lot of people playing it, yet it doesn't have some of the requirements or some of the things you would need to be a good esport title. That's why you don't see Super Smash Brothers tournaments played online. Well, that kind of defeats the point of esports in a way. If we can't play it electronically, digitally, then that doesn't really fit that box, So that's a lot. And that's a big question. And I hope I unpacked enough of that for that to make sense and kind of answer some of that a little bit. But I can think of so many games along the way that tried to become esports that had all of the right stuff in it, but didn't make it for a variety of reasons. I'll give for some reason, this game came to my mind, and I don't even know if it exists anymore. It's called Tribes. Tribes. Oh yeah, here it is. Tribes 3. So this was Tribes was a you can find it on Steam if you're looking for it, but Tribes was and it's still apparently in early access for I don't know, God knows how long. This game came out. It was very fast paced. It was very high like super interesting game, mismanaged by the developers. I mean, totally. The updates that were coming out were breaking the game, and they were adding new things that weren't balanced, and it just they did things that made it quickly fall out of what would be a good esport game. And even today, I mean, it still has mixed reviews, and who knows what people are saying about it. But I remember very clearly when this came out, it was touted as a next esport competitive title. This was coming out in the same time that like Counter-Strike 1.6 and we had Day of Defeat at the time. Things like was another really big title at the time. Tribes was big. Gosh, I hate this game. I can't stand it. I never got into it when I played it, but everyone loved it. Shoot, it'll come back to me in like a year. Like later tonight, I'll think about it and be upset because I couldn't think about it. But there's been many that have come and not done well for a variety of reasons. So I look at those as kind of use cases as to what you need to make the right thing. And also know that the gaming world is very strange. And there have been many titles that have become incredibly successful, and there's really not a good reason why, and we're lucky in that way. I think we're lucky in that way, honestly. If you really think about it, we're lucky that these people, Mount and Blade I'll just use that as a simple example. Mount and Blade. It's made by a husband and a wife, 2 people. They made this game, and it became massive, and it's huge game. It started by 2 people, and some of these esport titles that we see could be that way. League of Legends, 2 dudes, 2 people. I don't know if people really know that story of the founding and starting of League of Legends. 2 guys started that. And now it's some massive esport thing. And, but if you ask them at the time, they said, yeah, we wanted to make a competitive title that people could compete across the world and that we wanted to be big. They went into it wanting to do that, So yeah, that has been done. But yeah, it's amazing to me. We get very blessed because in the esport and gaming space, it's some of the things we get hurt, I think, just as much. There's been so many games that Fallout 76, so many games that have been very disappointing and have hurt the gaming industry, but just as many successes. So it's hard to tell. It's hard to say because it ultimately there is an artistic element to everything that we do, including the games that we make and the esports that we play. There is that artistic side of it, and I can't explain that. I can't explain why Five Nights at Freddy's became so popular, but the artistic lens of it had a big part of that. And Scott Cawthorn was very specific in how he drew the artwork for it because he knew that it would become, he thought that people would be into that. But that was an artistic thing. That was art. And you really can't quantify that. And it's very difficult to explain that. It's very difficult to explain why we gravitate to a game and why we don't on others. That's tough. That's a tough question to answer. Hopefully that was enough for you, though. And watch the fantastic question. Fantastic question. As I'm watching Tribes. Yeah, I don't miss this game. At all. Halo was another one. Halo's a good example. I'm surprised that there's not more Halo esports. But why is that? There's a reason for that. Cool. Well, thank you guys for joining. Thank you so much. It is 4:00 now. Any final questions, feel free. I'll stick around for a couple minutes and chat if anybody has any other questions. But if not, thank you guys for hanging out. I will clip the interview on Twitch. So if you go on Twitch later, you'll see just the interview portion if you want to rewatch that. I will share it on Facebook tomorrow after I edit it. I might need to, thinking about it, I don't think there was anything I need to edit, but I'll just double check and make sure. I don't think Jacob dropped any profanity or anything, but you never know. I'll double check. I felt like it went fine. So cool. But all right, if you guys don't have any questions, this is Cody. I'm signing off. I'll hang out for a couple minutes. You guys can have some chill hop music, I guess. And we will see you next week, Tuesday. School starts. So school is right around the corner. We start school next week. So we still will have the Coach's Corner. This is going to continue. This is not going to end. What it will most likely morph into is also a bit of recapping the games that we had. So I see this also too as talking about the games, bringing players on. So it won't be just me sitting here chatting going forward, especially during the school year. But during the off times, that's when it'll go kind of like this, and I'll look for some opportunities. I am looking for the next interview for careers in esports. So if you guys know anybody who's in the technology sphere, if you have any family or friends who work in the gaming industry, I've reached out to 2 game developers. That's my next target. Is I want to find somebody who's actively developing games, so you can hear from their perspective, because developing a game is a very different beast. It's a lot of loneliness and a lot of long hours, and it's different than what I deal with or what Jacob deals with. We're dealing with people and dealing with coaching and development and trying to build things, and that's not the same thing as sitting down developing a game. So I'm looking for that. So if you know anybody who's actively doing that in the world, please let me know. But yeah, if not, then y'all have a fantastic rest of your day. Have a great week, and I look forward to seeing everybody back on campus.